Hey there everyone, this is Zach here. So last time, we saw Toad's factory finally break down the 1 minute and 50-second barrier, with Chaos breaking past it and having to deal with the most frustrating obstacle ever, these dang Stompers. So far in this series, we have seen them just absolutely destroy players. They love to grind people to a halt, no matter what cool techniques get found. However, all of the strategies found on Toad's factory have given it the most diverse history up to this point in Mario Kart Wii's lifespan. And in today's part, we're gonna see what other cool things were found to try and grind the track down the next second barrier. So how would the Stompers foil their plans this time? Well, let's find out. So Chaos's 150.897 did last for a while, almost a year. Getting that sub took a lot out of him. His run got 2 chains in the crate section, as well as great pond cuts on laps 1 and 3, but a somewhat weak one on lap 2. That being said, his lap 3 had room for improvement. He did fail to get the chain in the crate section, and the driving could have been better, but asking for everything to go right in a run was just something that wasn't gonna happen. So what would it take for someone to step on Chaos's reign? Well, on May 24th, 2012, another player named Suryu brought in a strategy that helped the track with its biggest issue for now. What he did is use his first mushroom over the pond lap 1 like normal, but on lap 2, he goes for the shortcut shroomless, just like what Chaos was doing before on lap 3. However, Suryu did it differently than before. While Chaos just tricked off the mound and hoped for the best, Suryu both drifted and tricked over the pond at the same time. To get this to work, what he did was drift to the right up to the mound, and then he shifted his joystick to the left just before he got into the air. By moving from right to left or left to right either just before to right after you get into the air, you can increase your air time by a lot. This strategy is referred to as the Toad's Factory Input, or TF Input for short. It's one of the most useful techniques in Mario Kart Wii, enabling many shortcuts and strategies to become easier or even possible in the first place. In this case, the way Suryu was doing it made it a lot more consistent than before. That being said, the angle Suryu was approaching this shroomless cut didn't make it the easiest thing to go for, but because it was easier now, this made it easier for him to save his 2 remaining mushrooms for lap 3. Thus, he was slow enough to where the Stompers were no longer an issue. He used the second one by the crate, and the last one over the pond, ultimately securing the world record from Chaos. A few months later, on October 12th, another player named Zeke got their first world record on Toad's factory. Now Zeke actually used the same strategy as Chaos, so no shroomless shortcuts, and instead, spin drifted around the Stompers lap 3. Because of this slower strategy, he fell behind Suryu by a lot. So what did he do then to catch up? Well, yeah, that. Nice cheese there, Zeke. 6 days later, another player named Fuma also got their first world record on Toad's factory. He used the same strategy that Suryu did since it was objectively better than Chaos's strat. Dodging the Stompers was just too slow. In fact, when comparing his run to Zeke's, you can see how much evading them loses. Fuma is able to catch up almost entirely, and overall, this world record ended up being a better version of Suryu's. Oh, and just to show how powerful Zeke's low was, look how much he gains back at the end. Absolutely nuts. In response, 10 days later, Zeke got the record back using the 102 shroom strategy, requiring no low trick cheese this time. So for now, it seems like this strategy was the way to go. During this period of time, Japan was dominating Toad's factory, with all 3 of these players being Japanese, and especially with Zeke and Suryu, they started battling it out to secure the factory for themselves, doing whatever it takes. So 6 days later, on November 3rd, Suryu snipes it from Zeke. Now, as nice as the new shroom strategy was, it was inevitable that the enemy, the Stompers, would return. Suryu's run here was on a faster pace than the past several world records. For example, players were going back to the left boost panel lap 2, but Suryu was just barely, And I mean barely, just look at this. The boost panel disappears the first frame he gets the boost sparks to appear, to get to the right one like Chaos did. And as soon as he gets to lap 3, he's ahead of Zeke by 0.2. Though, because of this lead, reality reared its ugly head once more, and Suryu lost his entire lead. It sucks that even with all of these new strategies, this stupid Stomper could just not go away. Everything found this year helped to push the track down further and bring in a new age for Toad's Factory, but we're unfortunately back to the same dilemma as before, with no solution in sight. I do want to mention another detail about this run before we finish it up, just a small one. On lap 1, Zeke gets ahead of Suryu entering the conveyor belt turn. This is because it's better to hop and land on the very beginning of the thing instead of onto it. And that's simply because the belt moves you faster. This is something that a lot of people have been doing wrong up to this point. Some people have been doing it, but others haven't, and I decided to bring it up now because this is a good example of this time loss. And for now, this is how 2012 ends on Toad's Factory. We have a new shroom strategy and the first use of TF input, along with the transition from America to Japan with control over the factory. So who would be the first person to beat Suryu in 2013? Well, no one. No one beat him. So, on January 13th, 2013, Zeke came back and, rather than taking the crown from Suryu, decided to share it with him for a bit, with a world record tie. Hey, maybe he wanted to be best buddies. That's fine, they can share the love. Now Zeke used a different method for entering the Shroomless. What Suryu did was wait to drift after he landed on the ground. However, Zeke instead started his drift mid-air. The reason this is better is because you can take the pond cut tighter and have an easier time with it. For most of his run, Zeke is behind Suryu, and by the time he is about to finish lap 3, is very far behind. So, how did he save the day? Zeke, what are you doing, dude? This man's out of control. And I guess he gets more out of control because, as it turns out, he didn't like being best buddies, and this friendship unfortunately died a few hours later, so Zeke shoved Suryu out of the factory, keeping it for himself with a 6-1-2. So with this world record, I'm gonna compare it to Suryu's 7-1-0, as it's gonna be a more interesting comparison. With Zeke's run, he's behind Suryu for most of it, being over 0.1 behind lap 3. But because Stompers, yeah, Suryu lost his whole lead. Despite that, Suryu had a somewhat weak lap 3 with driving. In addition, Zeke got a much better pond cut, landing sooner than Suryu did and was faced at a much better angle to the boost panel ahead. So despite Zeke being that far behind entering lap 3, it didn't matter by this point. The second Stomper would be in the way if he was any faster and would just lose everything to it otherwise. So just like before, it came down to how strong lap 3 would be. You may have also noticed that players have been aiming for the left side of the track when finishing lap 3. At the time, there was a rumor that the start line wasn't programmed correctly and was crooked, so because of that, it was supposedly faster to finish on the left side. This is not true. I edited Zeke's ending, finished straight ahead, and gained 5 milliseconds on him. So yeah, false rumor. Almost 4 months later, on May 4th, we have another player named Kezer set their first world record on Toad's Factory. Now this run is pretty infamous, so we have a lot to talk about. So because these can't stop still, Kezer brought in like the 50 millionth Stomper dodge strategy. Rather than spin drifting to the left around them, he spin drifts to the right. In short, he doesn't have to go all the way to the left. Thus, he's closer to the turn that's angled to the right ahead. In addition, Kezer does the Shroomless on lap 1 instead of lap 2, so he uses no items on lap 1, which is different than before. And for now, at long last, we bring in this low trick strategy. So Kezer does two things here. 1. He double hops before the ramp. With 2 hops, a lot of players find it much easier to time the low jump. In addition, Kezer drifts off the ramp as well. In Mario Kart Wii, if you drift off ramps, generally speaking, it'll reduce your airtime. So with these 2 strategies, Kezer is having both an easier time here and getting a faster low trick. So because he didn't use any items lap 1, on lap 2, Kezer uses the mushroom in the crate area. And he fumbles the wheelie really badly. So this right here is what we in the community call a Kezer. If you fail to get the wheelie out entirely, then yeah, you pulled a Kezer. And we give credit to this run for that terminology. From there, he proceeds to do the shroomless cut on lap 2, meaning he's doing the shroomless twice now, instead of just once. This is because it's faster to do the shroomless and use the mushroom somewhere else on the lap than it is to use the mushroom on the pond cut the same lap. And unsurprisingly, he has to lose time for the lap 3 Stomper. From here, it's just trying to stay ahead of Zeke to the finish line. These strategies did help things, but all they're doing at this point is making the track more consistent to where lap 3 could be reached more often. So while helpful, it didn't solve the main issue. The Stompers were too much. It still didn't matter what was gonna happen. You were either gonna have to get a good lap 3 going under this dang thing, or just get a run so fast that you could dodge both of them and still be ahead of the previous record. Things weren't going well for the track. We've seen players make major mistakes and still get the world record, and now, all we had was a way to evade the Stompers more consistently if it came to that. So unless something new got found, something that fixed this horrible dilemma that made the Stompers no longer an issue, it looks like Toad's Factory was forever stuck this way. No hope to be found. What? You can outpace the Stompers lap 1? Well, as it turns out, if you use 2 mushrooms at the start of lap 1, you can just barely get past both Stompers at the start of the track. This strategy was found by a Mario Kart Wii tasker named BlackieBoy39, who used it in his tasks of 1 minute, 47 seconds, and 184 milliseconds released in the previous month. With this strategy, Zeke set this run of 150.530. What's nice about this strategy is not only is it useful for outpacing the Stompers, but burning 2 mushrooms at the start doesn't interfere with the rest of the track. There's no shortcuts that require you to use a mushroom anywhere, so you can complete the rest of the track without an item with relative ease. And not only that, but if you use all 3 of your mushrooms before you get to the Stompers lap 3, you can outpace them too. So now, at long last, these awful, frustrating, excruciating, pace-locking jerks are no longer an issue, as long as you're fast enough. So while you can outpace the Stompers completely now, you can't just get a world record for free. It's barely doable to clear them lap 1, with Zeke clipping the back edge here, and on lap 3, the first Stomper comes down right after he passes underneath it. Now, unfortunately for Zeke, things don't work well for him after this, cause at the end of lap 3, this happens. So even though he got the record back, he fumbled lap 3 very hard at the end, just barely beating Kezer. However, with a run that was this weak, is another sub possible? A month later, on June 4th, 2013, we see that another player, Fox, got his first world record on Toad's Factory with a 150.175. Now, if you're familiar with the community, you've definitely heard of his name. He ends up being one of the most legendary players ever, setting over 60 world records so far up to this day. This right here was his second world record set, and he's starting out strong already. With Fox's run, he used the new 2 Shroomer at the start, and this time being fast enough to not get his bike clipped. From there, he goes for the Shroomless lap 1, which Zeke didn't go for in his run. Not sure why, maybe it was to deal with one less Shroomless cut. Though what Fox opts to do instead is use the last mushroom here on lap 2. This helps to avoid dealing with a chain wheelie, plus with where the bridge is placed, it's furthest left lap 2, so you can use your mushroom, turn in it without losing speed, and fix your alignment for the turn ahead. Entering lap 3, Fox is able to beat the Stompers, and entering the Shroomless, they're basically tied. But because of Zeke's bad lap 3 ending, Fox came in and claimed his first seat on the factory throne. So the track is getting closer to the 149 landmark because of the new strategies with avoiding the Stompers, the Shroomless, and the low jump. It seemed like Toad's factory could at long last have its full potential ripped open. Plus, Fox had quite a number of mistakes. He missed some of the chains, he had a bad Shroomless lap 3, and missed a wheelie here when he landed. So really, the big problem was that it was hard to get past the Stompers lap 3. So, as long as someone could do it, then with good enough driving, the 149 dream can become a reality. So 2 months later in August, Fox inched in on it with a 0.32. With the sub this close, would it happen soon? Well, not really. With something as legendary as the next second barrier getting broken, it does bring in the biggest thing that hurts gamers the most: nerves. There were several people who began grinding out Toad's factory for the 149. I remember players on Skype talking about their paces and all their world record fails. Other people played the track and beat the Stompers as well. But the issue was they couldn't hold it together enough to get the sub. People were falling short of getting the world record over and over again. Toad's factory was proving to be a big issue, and yes, it was partially because it wasn't easy at this point to beat those Stompers. But it wasn't just the track, it was the mental roadblock hurting everyone too. And the epitome of this roadblock? On January 22nd, 2014, we had that Dane got the world record on Toad's factory with a 150.010. After so many world record fails between many great players like Fulag, Ollie, Fox, even Zeke and Kezer were playing it too, it still couldn't happen. This cursed 149 run wanted to keep on evading players as much as it could. This just couldn't be done. It was one of the most frustrating achievements I have seen people go for ever in this game. No matter what it seems, Toad's factory would do everything in its power to win. All hope out there seemed lost. Until one day. And for now, that's where I'll wrap up part 4. We saw what is, in my opinion, the best change this track has experienced so far. Pace locks are never fun, so the new 2-1-0 shroom strategy makes things more bearable for high-level time trialers. While beating the Stompers lap 3 wasn't easy, it's great that it's possible now. And because of that, we'll see in the next part what the true potential of Toad's Factory is like. If you enjoyed watching this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want to follow me on Twitter and Twitch, I have links for those in the description. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time as we trek down the 149 territory.